The very smooth sound of Chris Botti with Miami Overnight. It's 20 to 4 Jazz Radio 94.1 FM, and Chris Botti has become the largest selling American jazz instrumental artist with 4 #1 jazz albums as well as multiple gold, platinum and Grammy awards. And it's a great pleasure to have Chris Botti on the line. Chris, thanks very much for joining us this afternoon.
Well, thanks for having me on your show.
Well, you've had a wonderful start to your career, going straight from school to Frank Sinatra's band. What a way to start a career. How did you get selected for the band?
Well, it's not as glamorous possibly as it seems. However, Sinatra used to kind of pick his horn section for his big band from the best of college musicians in the United States. And in hindsight, it was an incredible opportunity for me to kind of be around one of the greatest performers of all time at a young age. But, I mean, it was part of, it was kind of your marching orders you had in the world of jazz or certainly in the world of popular music in the United States to go through those sorts of bands. There were a few of them: Buddy Rich, Woody Herman, Maynard Ferguson, and of course the top would be Frank Sinatra.
Well, did you actually get to talk to Frank Sinatra and learn a little bit about his craft?
Well, I talked to him. I don't know if I learned about his craft. I played my first solo in soundcheck in front of a bunch of his friends, Quincy Jones and a bunch of celebrities that were there, and he turned around to me and said, "Nice solo, kid." And I took that to be like, we're best friends, and made the mistake of going up to him and sort of treating him like he was my best friend. And I said, "Hi, Mr. Sinatra, I'm Chris Botti," and I introduced myself, and then his assistant, he was very nice, but his assistant put her arm around me and said, "Don't bother Mr. Sinatra anymore." But that's what you do when you're 21 years old. You're kind of naive, and the world is sort of just a big a wonder to you, and you just do stupid things.
Got the stars in your eyes.
Exactly.
Well, looking at I've had a look at your schedule on your website, and I'll tell you what, you certainly get around. Over the next month or so, you're going to be touring America. Then you go to Serbia and Poland, and part of the life, I guess, of a successful musician is touring and living out of a suitcase. But how do you cope with all of that?
Well, it's something that I balance every day by saying to myself, the alternative is to not have a career, to not walk on stage and have an audience. And I feel so fortunate to be able to be the person in jazz music that has a large worldwide audience. And I'll take that over any kind of long travel. I mean, we're on the road 300 days a year, and for the last 8 years I've been basically homeless, but in a good way. It's I view it as a wonderful opportunity, and it's something that I've dreamed about my whole life, trying to be a musician. So it's the good far outweighs the bad.
Yeah, I guess you've got to actually enjoy the travelling to make a success of it. Do you get to do much sightseeing and have a look around the countries that you travel to?
Sadly, no. I mean, when I was touring as a member of Sting's band, I saw the world in style. You couldn't imagine how great it was. But now, as a solo artist, when the whole band is kind of riding on my shoulders, it's more kind of roll into a city, do lots of interviews, go to the gig, play, get up the next morning and go, and we don't have the luxury like someone like Sting does to travel in a private jet and all that stuff. That gives you a lot more time in life. But I did that, and I'm just very, very happy the way it is right now. It's okay, even though I don't get to spend a lot of time. But the major cities we do trip around a little bit.
Well, I guess one thing is that you're giving your fans the opportunity, many of your fans, the opportunity to get to see you.
We love that, and we love to perform, and then after every show we do a meet and greet for the whole audience and stay out and sign CDs and talk to everyone, and so it's really nice for me to be able to interact with the fans as close as we can get.
Well, I was talking to a musician on the Gold Coast the other day about what sets the great musicians apart from others, and he had an interesting thought. He thought it was the interpretive ability, that was one of the most important things. Now, what do you think makes a great musician?
Well, a great musician and a great musician in combination with a career are two radically different things. Like I know some incredibly talented individuals, musically talented, that don't have a career at all. But then to actually go after a career and to be wanting to be known, to like do all the stuff like the travel, the disassociation with your sort of personal life, all the things you have to do to get a career, then it whittles down to a very, very select few. And so I think that the common thread with both of those things, not only the ability to play an instrument or be a musician, but to chase a career, is determination and drive. And that is the one thing that I would say in a young person. And I'm quoting the great Joni Mitchell when I was in her band. She would say that success in music, to have a career in other words, is 99% drive and 1% talent. That might be a little bit of an extreme assessment, but I sort of agree with the basic sentiment of that.
Yeah, I can well imagine that. Now, do you feel that you ever reach your peak as a musician? Is there still room to learn new things, new techniques as you get older?
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm a far better trumpet player now than I was 10 years ago, than I was 20 years ago. It is not the same as being an athlete, you know, where your kind of arc, you know, peaks at 28 or something like that. I think that jazz music and trumpet especially, you can get so much better as you get a little bit older and a little wiser, I suppose. But at a certain point, it will, the pendulum will swing the other way, and I won't have all the kind of physical ability on the trumpet, and I'll have to rely on other things. But that's part of just growing in life.
When you're in the hotel rooms, do you ever get your trumpet out and practice?
I do all the time. I have to play the trumpet every day, and so subsequently I've had many times where I've checked into a hotel and someone will come to me and say, "Hey, you're Chris Botti, we're big fans," and then I'll see that same person like that night or the next day, and they say, "We have the room down the hall from you. Why don't you ever play any of your songs? All you do is play scales all night long." And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's really what it's like. It's like being an athlete and lifting weights or running or something like that. And it's sort of monotonous, but the things you have to do to get the beautiful trumpet sound that you want to kind of go after.
Well, you certainly do have a wonderful sound, and I think it's totally unique to you. And I was reading that the trumpet that you actually use was made in 1939. Is that a case that they just don't make trumpets like they used to, or why did you choose that trumpet?
Sort of. I mean, I chose the trumpet because it was brought to me because they're famous for Miles Davis playing them. They're called a Martin trumpet, no relation to a Martin guitar. And I figured to myself that if I wasn't sounding very particularly good that day, it was because I wasn't practicing enough. Because if it's good enough for Miles Davis or Chet Baker or Clifford Brown or Dizzy Gillespie, then it's got to be good enough for me. And so I just kind of, it took the option anxiety out of it for me, you know. Like a lot of trumpet players are so psychotic about the equipment they use, and they're always changing, and the changing kind of makes you insane in your own way. So I thought I'd get this horn and I would just dedicate myself to it, and that's what happened.
You know, I was thinking maybe it's something like a Stradivarius.
Sure, and when someone like Joshua Bell plays a Stradivarius, and those of you that are listening don't know what Stradivarius is, it's a 250-year-old violin, and Joshua Bell is the greatest concert violinist around, one of them, arguably, today. And if he's playing a Stradivarius, if he's not working out so good on a phrase, he's not thinking to myself, that darn Stradivarius is making a good violin. You know, it's an absolute that the Stradivarius are the best violins in the world, so the other factor would be you're not practicing enough. So it's a very good analogy that you picked.
Well, you've performed with some incredible people over the years, and I've watched a lot of your YouTube videos, and particularly one great video is where you're performing, I think, in Boston with Yo-Yo Ma and Cinema Paradiso, the theme to that wonderful movie. Who are the great people, the people who have most impressed you that you've performed with?
Well, I mean, that was a big highlight of my career, to stand there with Yo-Yo Ma in front of the Boston Symphony and play that music. But more than that, it was the respect from those individuals towards me that they gave me on that show. For instance, it's one thing to like have somebody show up and say, oh, we really like your music. It's another thing when somebody like Sting or Steven Tyler or Yo-Yo Ma, or they give a couple of days of their life and come into your show. It's a very much a bizarre kind of moment for me. I was sitting there going, I can't believe this is happening. It's fantastic. But of all the people I've ever worked with, from Bocelli to Bublé and on and on and on, my favorite, and he's my best friend, is certainly Sting. You know, he's given me my career. He's given me all the breaks in my career, and he's been my biggest ally and my champion in my corner of my music. And it really takes somebody like that to open doors that believes in you, because the general public, it takes them a long time to understand instrumental music. They're more likely to adapt to a U2 concert or to a Bublé show or something like that, and that's a fantastic show. But to get an instrumentalist and realize that it's entertainment as well as being music, it takes a lot bigger of a hurdle, and you need someone that sort of opens that door, and Sting did that for me.
Yeah, well, it takes a lot of people to put on a great concert too. How many organise these concerts, and how many people do you bring with you when you come out?
I'm on the crew side of things, not a lot. 2 people in the crew, but on the musician side, I would put my band up against anyone. There's 8 musicians, 6 on stage, and 2 special guests that we bring with us. A fantastic classical violinist named Caroline Campbell, and the singer who's been out with the Rolling Stones, been a member of the Rolling Stones for the last 15 years, a woman named Lisa Fisher. And I would put her voice up against anyone in modern music since Ella Fitzgerald or Sarah Vaughan, but certainly in the Christina Aguilera and Mariah Carey, same voice, or Luther Vandross, in the same kind of artistry as any of those singers. And it's just such an honor to tour the world with her.
Well, Chris, you're touring Australia at the moment, and you'll be performing at the Tivoli in Brisbane tomorrow night, and that's going to be a great event. I know that actually quite a number of our listeners have phoned me and told me that they'll be there, so I hope you can give us a wave for Jazz Radio 94.1.
I will for sure do that.
And it's been a pleasure talking to you, Chris, and I wish you a great tour, and I hope you have a good night tomorrow night.
Well, thank you so much for having me on air.
That's Chris Botti, and it's 8 to 4, Jazz Radio 94.1 FM, and here's Chris with the track called Lisa.